Welcome back, friends and family. This week we are talking about responsible decision making. There are a lot of things that go into that, and I think it's important to consider the things that get in the way of us making what we think are the best decisions for ourselves. A lot of times, what gets in the way are things like fear and anxiety about the potential outcomes. That if we were to make one decision, these negative things might happen. And I often think a lot of people don't pursue what they really want to do, don't pursue their passions, which we talked about earlier this year, because of that fear. Because often the pain of the present seems less terrifying than the potential pain of the unknown, of risking something, of really putting ourselves out there and pursuing what we want and potentially not achieving it. That pain seems too great. So what we're going to focus on this week with regards to responsible decision making, and really I'm talking about making the decisions we want to make for ourselves, that empower ourselves and bring us closer to our hopes and dreams and goals. That's kind of how I'm using the term responsible decision making. It's not necessarily about falling in line with a certain set of rules or something like that right now, but making the best decisions for ourselves. And hopefully that is kind of responsible in a broader sense, that we're taking care of ourselves physically, emotionally, in all the ways that we need to. So we're going to focus on a piece of Stoic philosophy, an idea called Premeditatio Malorum, which translated means the premeditation of evils. Essentially, Premeditatio Malorum is thinking about something, in this case, something we want, a goal, a dream, a hope. And then all the things that might go wrong if we pursue that, if we make a specific decision on that path. That might, on the surface, seem a little pessimistic or negative, but I don't think it is. In fact, I think it's one of the most optimistic practices we can put into place. Anytime we're going to make a big decision, if we stop and take a moment to think rationally about all the potential outcomes. Sometimes we focus on the potential positive outcomes, and that's a good thing. It's great to picture what the best results might be. But it's also very important to think about the possible negatives, to think about what could go wrong. Because then we can start to defeat those fears and anxieties. We can ask ourselves, okay, what could go wrong? If this is a possible negative outcome, we can start to look at all those negative outcomes, possible negative outcomes, and consider first, what's the likelihood of each of those things happening? There's always an array of things that could happen. What's the likelihood of each one? If something's very unlikely, we maybe don't need to spend as much time and effort worrying about that thing. But if we do consider the worst case scenario, then we can go through a checklist of ourselves. We can say, all right, could I survive this thing, first of all? If I make this decision, if I pursue this thing earnestly, and it all goes wrong, it all goes as badly as possible, could I make it out the other end? Could I be okay? And if so, that takes away a little bit of that fear. Then we can go into the process of, all right, if I can make it through that, and I'm faced with this negative thing, what are some things that I could do in response to this negative outcome? How would I try to respond to that? How could I work my way through it, get out of it, turn it into a positive thing, or make the most of whatever I have left? How could I address that thing? If we go through that process, that thought process, then those potential negatives become less of a threat. Then we've prepared ourselves in a way to face them. And not all of them are going to come to fruition. We might face some, but then we'll have taken some steps to fight back against them. So that's where I want us starting with our look at responsible decision making. I want you all to take something that's a goal, something that you want out of life, and I want you to go through a little bit of the process of Premeditatio Malorum with that goal. And I want it to be something that maybe you're a little anxious about. Maybe it's something you're planning on doing, but you do have some reservations. You are a little nervous about it. I want you to think about the worst case scenario, everything that could go wrong, and then how you could fight back against those things, how you could make it through. I'm excited to talk about that this week. Let's have another wonderful week of school. Much love.